The next thing we're going to get into is the next set of patterns. So we're going to do a rectangular pattern, and I'll just jump into the pattern, this one real quick, and yeah, maybe I'll just do the geometric just so you can see it. But rectangular pattern is, guess what? A pattern of things going in
a rectangular shape.
Some kind of rectangular shape, or in straight lines, basically. Pattern or path is going to follow a path, and then give you equal spacing. So, kind of looking at some examples of things. This would be a good part to be a rectangular pattern, because we could draw one of these pieces and pattern it and have maybe pattern this piece here, we can down, pattern this cut. You know, we could draw one of this kind of this whole unit here and pattern it. And then just the ends get treated differently. But it's basically the same thing, pattern. So we don't have to do it every time. So this is a good use of pattern. What about, there's four holes here. Could we just make one of those and make a pattern for the other four, or the other three? Is that a good use of the pattern command?
I don't know, because I don't know how the thing works. I haven't seen it.
So let's look at that. So with pattern, let me create a block. So let's say I create some kind of cut here. All right, so I've got this little cut piece. If I go into the rectangular pattern, again, I can pick, you can see it automatically, it's the same command for all three of them. But I can pattern bodies, faces, features, components. So all of these things, we can do it to any of the things. Again, we're probably going to use features. That's the easiest way, because I want to pattern this feature. You can also pattern bodies. So like on that other one, you might draw this as a body and then pattern it. But I'd probably draw like this rectangle here, do this and pattern as a feature. So I want to pick features, grab here, and then I need to tell it axis. So I want to pick a direction. So now I have two different, so I've got the axis there, it's got that. If I pick two different things, it'll go. If I pick there, now I can go this way. And because it's a thing, it's actually a 3D direction, so you can pick different lines going different ways. So say if I had a if I pick pattern, features, that for my axis I can pick this direction. And if you just pick one direction, it's automatically going to be perpendicular things. If I pick a second one, now it's using those two things. So I have one spacing this way and one spacing at this other direction. Okay? So that could be a line on a sketch. It could be a construction axis. It could be an edge of the part, whatever. So the patterns don't have to be 90 degrees. It doesn't have to be an actual rectangle. They can be, and they don't even have to be on the same plane. One could go up, one could go that way. You can see by picking my second one here, and it went up in that Z direction and over. So it's kind of moving in all three directions. It went that way. It also went that way. You can see here, I bring this in so I can tell it kind of how far I want. I can use this to change how many entities there are. And I can also look at that down here, so I can say I want it to be 2 inches between in that direction and 1 inch in that direction. I can also tell it I want it to be symmetric. So now it's going to start there. And symmetric really only works if you've got an odd number of things, because then you have one in the middle. Because if you have an even number, now you've got, it's not really symmetric, it just adds one extra to the positive side first. So with that, you can start in the middle and go out from the middle in a pattern. We can have it be extents, so if I go back to one direction, right now, since this is set to extents, this measurement is measuring from the first one, from the center of the first one to the center of the last one is 1.5. If I tell it spacing, now it's going to give me the spacing between each one. So depending on what you want, if you know you've got a total area of here and you want to fill it with this many, then you can use extents. If you know I want it to be spaced out this far apart, then use spacing. Okay, so I can go spacing over and up, whatever. I can also use this suppression, and I can turn some of them off. So I can say, I don't want those ones. I only want the outside ones. So if by hitting this button for suppression, I can do that. Then I can say OK, and it drops them in. Okay? So that's kind of pattern. So if I'm starting here in the corner and I'm going over and up, and if I want it to be symmetric, can I do that? Can I make it this space here be the same as this space here? So like on this, I want the space from the top and the side, side and side, side. I want that to be the same on all 4 corners. Can I do that with the rectangular pattern command?
Yes. Not directly.
So I can do it, but how? What do I need to do it?
You need to.
So if I turned off suppression here and I just said I want it to be 2 by 2, and I want it to be evenly spaced, this space to be the same as that space. Can I do that?
Yeah.
Distance. I don't see how unless you constrain it.
No, I can't.
Yeah, you still will have.
Because they're measuring between them. So I could do it in the equation. I could say the overall width minus whatever that is, or times 2, right, would give me the space in between. So I could write a big equation for that. So for centering, so having like 4 holes in a pattern around a thing like this, an array is not the way to do it. Okay, in that case, you'd want to rather do a sketch and do it. But on a hole, that's an easy thing. On this one, this gets a little bit more complicated. So we'd have to redo this thing. And this is where something we're going to do next week, we could just make this thing and reuse that feature. In SolidWorks, they have a nice option for pattern called by sketch. And you can just pick your feature, then pick sketch points, and it puts in that feature like you do the whole command. Fusion doesn't have that. So again, some of the programs have different options. So SolidWorks, the pattern commands, is much more robust than what Inventor or Fusion has. So yeah.
So I was trying to think of a way that you could do that. You could draw the original item on the center of the part. Like if you were to draw that first extruded sketch, like if you were to draw the first sketch there on the midpoint of the part, then you could then pattern with a symmetrical pattern and then just suppress the original.
But I'm not going to be able to give it the distance from the edge to the thing without using an equation.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm an algebra person, I don't mind using equations, but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, so that's just one of the things to watch out for. So usually for stuff like that, I won't use the pattern. But yeah, but if it's a shape like this, but usually like that, it's holes. So in holes, we don't need to do that, because if I wanted holes equally spaced like that, the easy option would just to be create a sketch, right? Draw a line between it, and then do a center rectangle from the midpoint. Because now I can just dimension and drop my hole on those corners, right? And now I know it's always going to be centered and everything. So if you have that situation where you've got a kind of a thing and you've got 4 holes and you go in or whatever, yeah, don't use the pattern, just draw them in themselves. Same kind of thing with this. I want holes midway between each of those things. Doing a pattern is not going to be doing it, but if I just drew lines between the midpoints and put points on the midpoints of those lines, then the holes go in perfectly, right? So sometimes things that look like they might be a pattern, patterns aren't the best way to do it. So rectangular patterns are kind of used kind of less often, but they are used for things like this, where we need to have this thing, kind of a complicated thing, bounce over a few times. We put it in like that. Also on the kind of the examples for this one is another undimensioned one. So I don't know, guess that's like an inch. But here we can make it, right? We can make one hole here, pattern that hole all the way out there. And then make a hole here and pattern it there. Makes it easy, yeah.
I imagine a keyboard is probably also done with a lot of rectangular
Yeah.
patterns.
Yeah, so that's because that's not a centered one, but yeah, create a hole, one key there, pattern it over.
Yeah.
But because it has the offset, it's really probably pattern the row, make the next,
Yeah, you pattern 3
or create the 1 QAZ keys and then pattern those across.
Oh, yeah.
Because each of those could be its own feature of cut, and then you pattern all 4 of those features across. And then that way you have space to do your other things. So here's the first part for this one. Again, make up some dimensions, make up some parameters so you can adjust and see what it works out to. And then we have this piece here. So it's basically a little pin that has some O-rings in it. You don't draw the O-rings, just draw the pin itself. But we can create one of these and then pattern this slot down. So if I'm in here, actually I'm just gonna use this. Or I can just do my extrude and do it with an offset plane. So I can do that, and then I can just do a pattern of that feature. And I've got that cut more times. So instead of being the square, we do it round on that piece. So that's another kind of good thing for doing oil rings or whatever, stuff like that.
Did you repeat that? I missed it.
So if you can create, so I have that, I did that ring, just like I did before. I just created a sketch on the top, and then I extruded it with an offset plane. So that way it's down below the surface. So now I can just pattern, just rectangular pattern, that cut, tell where to go, tell my spacing, and now I've got multiple cuts there.
PlayStation 2.
What?
It's the PlayStation 2.
Yep. So on this one, you just want to go from here to here's your distance. So you're just gonna you have to do some math. So 44 minus 39, so 5. That's your spacing from, so the same spot to the same spot. Okay? So top to top, bottom to bottom, middle to middle, whatever. Okay? Does that make sense? Any questions? All right, then I will